This isn't a time of year that our church does every year that we're excited about. We get excited about this each year as we enter the holiday season, as we enter this time of the year. And boy, it's already here, right? Like we have Halloween just got over. Someone told me earlier in the last verse they had put a bunch of they look like the Addams Family guy. What's the guy's name? It was Mr. Gustus, and he couldn't get it all out all the way, so he's still kind of in costume. Hair dye, what can you do about it? Anyhow, we're past one, and now we're into Thanksgiving coming up this year. We've got Christmas next month, right? I mean, lots happening. But as we enter the holiday season, we do something special every year this time of year, and I love it. And I don't know how many people have come up to me and asked me, are we doing this soon? Yes, we are. And today's the day we're talking about every year, this time of year, we do our Be Rich campaign. It's something we've done for a long time now, and we're excited about it. If you don't know what that is, you will. I got a nice text, by the way, between services from one of our early service attenders, a young college young man, who said, man, it's really lit his fire about what we're about this, because this is his first year with us. And I'm glad to get the feedback from so many people each year. But this is our thing we do every year. We're going to explain what that means in more detail, but basically it's where we look outside the walls of our church and find other places that are doing good work that we try to be a blessing to as we enter the holiday season. And I'll explain more at the end of the message today. Most of us know, if you're new, I want to just say one thing up front here. We get the term be rich from a Bible passage found in 1 Timothy chapter number 6, where the Apostle Paul's writing to young Timothy, and he says to him in 1 Timothy 6:17, he says, teach those who are rich in this world. I want to quickly pause here. Those words are rich. Most of us would say, well, that's not me, that's somebody else, because we all know people who are richer than me. At least I do. That's many of you richer than me. No, but I mean, we all know people richer than us. So it's easy to compare that and say, that's not me. But we don't step back far enough to look at the entire world and realize that rich in this world, right? Well, that's us. We're, easily top 10 percenters, if not far higher in the percentiles than that in the globe. We just don't see that up close in our sphere. But Paul says, teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud, not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. I really want to just preach this passage. I don't have time. There's way too much to do. But that's so good. Let's keep moving. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. In verse 18, he says, tell them to use their money to do good. He says they should be rich, there's where we get the phrase, they should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. And so he defines being rich, and you might look at that and say, hold on now, he just said he was talking to those who are rich. So how do you need to be rich if you are rich? But there's a distinction there. There's a difference. And he says if you want to be rich, you be rich in good works, that's serving, right? That's serving. And generous to those in need, always ready to share. That's giving. So we have serving and giving, and these are ways in which we can be rich. Verse 19, he says, by doing this, they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for the future so that they may experience true life. And that's a fascinating verse because it's reminding us that there's other ways to invest in our future. Most of us think of investment as, I want to invest so I can retire someday, hopefully early, and then I'm all set. And that's great, good, have a plan, right? But here's the thing, he says, there's a different kind of investment we don't think about. Storing up our treasure as a good foundation for the future. Why? So that they may experience true life. Because something we all come to learn eventually, and that is as we get older, we don't look back and say, I used to have a lot of great toys and stuff. But we do look back and say, we find fulfillment, peace, satisfaction, joy, and security from the good that God has allowed us to do for those we love and those around us in the world we live in. Our serving, our giving means more. And so we want to be rich in those ways. And this passage, I want to get into it. I'm just trying to skim. I have a hard time. But it reminds us of this truth, and that is this, that there's a difference between having riches and being rich, right? There are people who have riches, but they're not rich. There are people who have riches and are discontent with how much they have, even though they're rich, because they want more. And there are people who have a lot less who are very content with what they have, who's rich in that situation. There's people who have rich but have problems in all of their relationships and all of their life. What is rich? There's a difference between having riches and being rich, and Paul says, tell them to be rich in giving and in serving others. Now, that's the basic passage we get be rich from. And I will explain what we try to do every year, which is outward facing, and it's something we all participate in together, and we're going to ask you to step up and help us do it. But first, before we get to that part, I wanted to set the stage, and we still want to tell a story from the life of Jesus. Because in this series here, we are going through, week by week, the life of Jesus since last year, like last December, right? And we're telling every story, every miracle, every interaction. We're just kind of picking the parts of Jesus' life and teaching them to ourselves as we go. And today I want to tell a story. Now, it's not the next story in our lineup. We're not really being super chronological, but if we were being chronological, we're jumping ahead a few weeks to pull this story to today. And the reason why is because it goes really well with our Be Rich thesis, our Be Rich campaign. And so, I want to read the story with you. It's found in Luke chapter 12, and this will keep the ball rolling on the Jesus story. Luke 12, Jesus has been teaching, and he gets interrupted. Jesus got interrupted a lot. People would just, the religious leaders would argue with him mid-conversation. People would sometimes speak up. And here's another time where in Luke 12 he's teaching, and then in verse number 13 it says this, "Then someone called from the crowd, 'Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me.'" Now that's interesting. This person wasn't probably listening to a word that Jesus had been saying. Like Jesus had been talking. You ever come into a meeting or some situation and you're so preoccupied that you aren't even thinking about what's going on because your mind is stuck somewhere else? Maybe right now, you're like, what's Arlen even doing up there? Womp, 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 this is, Jesus is teaching. This guy is not even zoned in because he's thinking about the fact that their father had died and his brother apparently has control and he's not sharing the family estate, the inheritance, fairly with him. Maybe his brother's a terrible person and he's not getting his fair shake. Or maybe he is getting his fair amount, but he's just greedy, he has a spending problem, he wants more. I don't know. It doesn't matter who's at fault. This guy is thinking about one thing, more of dad's inheritance. And he decides the best thing to do is to interrupt the whole talk, stop Jesus from blabbling up there. Everyone else can stop what they're doing so I can get Jesus to talk to my brother, who apparently is in the audience. Are they sitting next to each other and at odds? Are they somewhere else in the crowd? I don't know. But tell my brother to share the goods with me. Everyone else, just put your, sorry for the disruption, but we really are living on Captain Me planet, and so let's deal with my situation publicly right now. Jesus, in verse 14, Jesus replied, "Friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as that?" I love that Jesus is going to spend the next few verses correcting that thinking, but the first thing he says is friend. And I want us to hear that because it's easy for all of us to get to a spot in our lives where we wonder if God's pretty miffed at us because I don't know about you, I get stupid sometimes. But here's the thing, God loves you. God loves you. And even when we're off course, he looks at you and says, "Hey friend, let's with the best. Let's make an adjustment here." He says, "Hey friend, who made me a judge over you?" Jesus was like, I didn't come here to be a civil judge. You have those. Maybe you want my spiritual authority as Jesus to make your brother cooperate because he'll listen to me. That's not what I came here to do. That's not what we're talking about. And then Jesus says, I think he says this not just to this guy or to his brother. I think he says this next thing to the whole crowd. Verse 15, then he said, "Beware. Guard against every kind of greed." That's an interesting statement, isn't it? Like every kind of greed. Isn't greed just greed? Greed is greed. Like we mean every kind of greed. But there are kinds of greed. Greed shows itself in different ways. Let me just give you a couple quick examples. One is there's the classic greed of saying, I get more money to store it up, shove it under my mattress or in a hole in the ground in a paper sack. If you do that, tell me where it's at so I can help you guard it. But anyhow, I'm gonna put it in the bank, or I'm gonna put it in my investments. I want my bottom line net worth to be a certain number before I feel I have enough. We think of the Scrooge McDuck. Remember DuckTales, anybody? DuckTales? Come on now. This is spiritual right here. Scrooge McDuck diving in his vault full of gold coins and swimming in them. That's greed. I have more and got to hold on to it. And that's a type of greed. That's a way we show greed. But there's another contrary way that is more ominous. And that is that we get and we spend and we get and we spend, and everything I get is to spend. I want nicer stuff in my house. I want a nicer house. I want a better car. I want nicer clothes. I want more clothes. I want more experiences and things and dining out and doing all this stuff. And whatever comes my way, I'm enjoying it because it is mine. And we're not like that Scrooge McDuck person, so that's not greed. But I want to define greed in a way we've often defined it before, but I have not done it in a while. And that is this. The definition of greed we often give is greed is the assumption that it's all for my consumption. That's it. That everything that comes to me is for me. Whether it's for me to hoard it so I feel secure with a big enough dollar amount, or whether it's for me to enjoy because it's my life, and if you don't have it, that's your problem. You shouldn't have been born peasants, Or I worked hard because God gave me the body and the ability and the opportunities, and I seized them. But here's the bottom line. I assume that when it comes to me, I assume it's there for me to consume. That's greed. And Jesus is saying in this verse 15 again, he said, beware, guard against every kind of greed. And then he makes this statement. He says, life is not measured by how much you own. And we know that instinctively, I think. It's weird. I've done so many funerals lately. I did one yesterday. I said like eight funerals in as many weeks in the community. I had hundreds, really, since I've been here in the community. And it's amazing to me, at all these events, I'm reminded that people step up to the front to speak about the deceased, and they don't tend to talk about, oh, they sure, worked a lot of hours, or they sure had a lot of nice toys. They might mention some things they had if there's nothing else to say. But the stuff that they really celebrate and praise is how much they loved their family, how much they cared for others, how much they served and gave. Those are the things that matter in the end. If you ever think about what you once said about you at your eulogy, that you want a life-changing experience, go home and sit down and just write down, what do I hope people say about me when I'm gone? And then ask myself, am I on that trajectory? But anyhow, because it will happen. But sometimes along the way in life, we think, well, my life is measured by how much I have. That person has more. I want to get to that level. But that's really not life, and we know that. But it's easy to think. And Jesus warns us about greed. Now, remember, this all happened because Jesus was telling a story and someone interrupted him. Now, I have a couple people in this room who are communicators besides me, public speakers. I always wonder, what do you do when someone interrupts you and you get back on course? The temptation would be to say, now that I've dealt with that rude interruption, let me get back to my earlier point, right? But Jesus doesn't do that. He's perfectly content to say, you know what, this guy interrupted me. Maybe there's a chord that needs to be struck here. Maybe all of us need to hear more about this topic of greed. And so Jesus pivots with the interruption, and I respect that. He decides to tell everybody a story in verse 16. It says, then he told them a story. He said, a rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. Now, this is a rich man because of that reason. By the way, why did he have a fertile farm? Did he inherit it from his father and grandfather? Was he born into a rich family that had great property and he just kept it going? Or was he a businessman who shrewdly saw a good piece of land and bought it and produced? I don't know. Most people who are successful would tell you that it's a mixture of skill and hard work and a bit of luck. I don't know which guy's story this is, but he is rich because he has fertile land. That fertile land's producing crops. And the idea would be this. Every year at harvest, you store enough crops for yourself to live on for the next year. so that by the time the next harvest comes around, you replenish your supply. But if you have enough crops, you can also put the rest aside and sell them to other people, wholesalers or individual people throughout the year. And as they buy the crops throughout the year, you make extra money besides what you're living off. And if you really do well, you can sell a lot of crops, and then you could really make a lot of money. This guy made a lot of money. Fertile farm, fine crops, and he got rich off of doing it for many, 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 many years. And it says in verse number 17, he said to himself, what should I do? I don't have room for all my crops. Like, apparently the barns and warehouses that he would store the crops in, which you hope you can fill every year. You hope there's enough harvest to where you didn't leave empty space in the building. They're not only filled to the brim, there's not even room for all the crops, and you got to put them somewhere or they'll go bad. And so he's like, what am I supposed to do? Folks, that is the definition, Mike, that's the definition of what we call a good problem. That's a good problem, right? You ever have problems and you have a good problem? Here's a good problem. Man, I have so much money that I put them in rubber bands, and the rubber bands keep snapping because they can't hold all my money. Right? That's a good, here's a good problem. I have so much money that I keep stacking it up real high and the piles keep falling over because there's so much there. What am I supposed to do with all of that? That's a good problem. If anyone has that problem, let me help you after the service. But this man's like, I don't know what to do. I don't have room for it all. And then he says in verse 18, then he said, I know, I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. This is smart. This is a very smart move. Because he has enough wealth set aside that he can go ahead and deplete it to tear down the barns, buy the material, pay for the labor, and build bigger barns. And yes, that will cost him some of his money, but he'll make it back in all the extra space that he stores all these extra crops in. Next year and the year after that, he's going to multiply that money over and over again. You know what we call this? We call this scaling your business, you business people. He's scaling his operation, right? He is doing well for himself, and I applaud the business acumen of this man to prepare, making a step now to make it better later. That's his plan. Of course, then he says this. He says, then I'll have room enough to store all my wheat and other goods. That word enough is going to come up a couple times in the next couple verses, so I thought I'd point it out now. Enough is a funny word for us. Because we say, well, I want enough. You know what the problem with enough is? It's never enough. Never. It's evasive. It's elusive. People all the time say to me, and I'm the same way. We all as humans, we say, I don't want to be rich. I just want to be comfortable. I just want to have enough. We all say that. People say that all the time because, I don't want to be like those big, bad rich people. I don't want to be like that. I just want to have enough. I just want to be comfortable. That's what we say, right? Here's the problem. Comfortable is a moving goal. I could tell you the stories of people I know who got to those goals, and also they're like, you know what? I see another tier. There's another tier over there. I could be more comfortable. Enough is a moving target. It just is. And this is a guy who is rich already, but he's like, if I can just put together a 5-year plan where I can just then get to the next level and then do these next steps and then I can get to this next tier, then one day, once I do this and this and this, then I'll have enough. I'll have room enough for all my stuff. Notice the word then. There's always a then. It's like that very sacred, holy movie. It's not a holy movie. Don't watch it. Terrible and not worth it, stupid. But that scene from was that Dude, Where's My Car? Where they go to the drive-thru and they have the and then thing going on. And then. This guy's like, you know what I got to do? He's like, I got to get more because I don't have enough fruit. But then I'm going to take my money and then I'm going to build bigger barns. And then I'm going to fill them up with all my stuff. And then I'll have enough. And then he says in the next verse, and then I'll sit back and say to myself, my friend, you have enough stored away for many years to come. I've reached the goal finally. Now take it easy. When is now? Now take it easy was not then, not right then. It would be a later then. Once I get to that next tier, then I'll be able to say, now I have enough. Now I'm rich now, but now I don't have enough. Now I can't take it easy. But if I get to that next level, then I'll be able to say, now take it easy one day. Eat, drink, and be merry. Because after all, it's nice to be able to eat and not worry about running out, drink and not be able to running out, be merry, entertainment, do fun things, not worry about money. By the way, aren't we all in that boat? I'm in that boat. Don't we all want to get to the spot, hopefully early retirement, where we can say, I don't have to worry about having enough. We're set. That stress is off my plate because we've reached that goal. He's just like me and you, except for he has a lot more money than us. And we think if I had that kind of money, I wouldn't feel that way, and yet I could tell you from experience and people I know, we keep feeling that way. But here's what happens. Remember, Jesus is telling a story here. This is Jesus teaching. And in verse number 20, he says, but God said to him, you fool, you will die this very night. Now, fool might seem like a harsh word, and Jesus is going to use it twice. He's making a point. I don't think that God is saying you're a fool for being smart at scaling your business or planning for the future. That's not what he's saying here. He's saying to this man, you've made plans for everything because you know your stuff, you know what you're doing, but there's something you don't know, that you're not smart enough to know, that none of us are smart enough to know, and that is when our expiration date will arrive. It can come on us quite suddenly. We find the news out, I have shorter time than I thought I did, or we get no warning. And the story that Jesus is telling, this man is going to have a chariot accident on the way back from town that evening, and it's over. Or he's going to have a heart attack that night, and it's over. Either way, at some point, it's done that night, but he doesn't know it yet, because how could he? How could I know it yet? How could you know it yet? But at some point, when we're not ready, we find out time's up. Because we're not smart enough to know that part. We can plan for the rest, but sometime is our time. And then Jesus says, you'll die. God says, you'll die this very night. And then he says, then who will get everything you worked for? So now Jesus is doing the and then. He's like, so you all this planning, and then he says, and tonight you're going to die. And then your wife and her new husband are going to eat and drink and be merry on the rest of their life and not worry about it. Good luck. And then maybe your kids will get it. Maybe they're not ready for it yet because they're not mature. They're not got good character. And get money is an accelerator. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. And wherever bad in our life, money always makes it worse. And it could wreck them, but you can stop it because you're gone. Or the lawyers will get it. The government's going to get it. Someone's going to get it. But guess what? It ain't going to be your problem anymore because they don't put the money in the casket that's big enough to hold just you. And that's true for us today. They don't ever see U-Hauls being pulled behind a hearse. It just stays behind. And he says, and then, who's going to get it? You worked hard. You had a plan. You had a few more years to plan, but it's over. Then what? And it reminds me, and I want to make this statement, that God's then is a different when than ours. The God's then is a different when than ours. And I can plan a lot of things, but I don't know when God's then is, if that makes sense. But it comes. It comes. And so Jesus then summarizes the entire story with a statement. Luke 12:21. Jesus says, yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. Now don't miss that now. Here's what Jesus did not say, so I can be clear. Jesus did not say, yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, period. He did not say that. We're not demonizing the rich. People love to do that in culture. People who are rich are all bad, because they have more than me. It's jealousy usually. We might do that to people we think are obscenely rich, but we don't think about the people in the global population who are really in poverty, who look at us and think we're rich and might hate us. Don't hate me, I'm doing my best I can. But we hate upwards. It's easy to do that. He's not bashing someone because they happen to have money. Like, I saw this week, I think in the news, someone who's a multimillionaire bashed billionaires. It's easy to hate the ones who have more. And I'm neither a multimillionaire nor a billionaire, for the record. Maybe some of you are. Let's talk. But anyhow, here's the point. He's not bashing people with money, because sometimes you just have it. Some people are born into it. Some people do well with some things they venture into. He's bashing having that, but missing the second part. Money's not the problem. In fact, it's interesting. Earlier we read from 1 Timothy chapter 6. Remember that, where he said, be rich in good works and in generosity? In that same chapter, 1 Timothy 6, we did not read this, but earlier he makes a statement that the love of money is the root of all evil. Not money isn't the root of all evil. The love of money is. Like money is a wonderful servant, but it's a terrible master. The problem is a fine line between who's serving who when it comes to money. We start loving it. It's always a problem. It ruins us. It ruins our, again, it's a whole sermon I can't get into. So here's the bottom line. A person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have, what? A rich relationship with God. Because that's what counts. How rich are we with God? That's what matters, because one day we'll leave everything else behind. There's an old song by Point of Grace that has a lyric I always think about. It says, make peace with God and make peace with yourself, because in the end, there's nobody else. And in the end, that's one thing that will endure. So what's a relationship with God? Well, a relationship with God starts with faith. That's what he says. Our faith is the entry point, that he loves us, and if we can just believe that and put our faith in that, it changes everything for us. It changes our whole direction of our lives. We have security about what happens when life is over. It gives us hope. If you've never put your faith in Christ, I hope you'll do so today. It is the peace giver that nothing else can have, and until you embrace the promises and love of God by faith. So I hope you'll believe that, but it goes beyond believing. That's where it starts. But we saw last Sunday, if you were here, that we are called not just to believe, but to follow. Give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. What did Jesus do? Well, he did what we saw earlier in being rich. He left the glory and splendor of heaven, laid aside his divine privilege to walk in the earth and live a very impoverished life. He was a minimalist all his life, and served and sacrificed, and he gave until he died. And then he rose again. And you're like, Arlen, but see, that's the difference right there. Jesus did all that stuff, but he still went back to his splendor, riches in heaven someday. So there you go. Exactly. This life isn't the end. Elsewhere, in fact, in the same chapter later on, he says, lay up treasure in heaven. Because this isn't the end. If we follow Jesus, we believe that there's we're investing for later as well, but we're right now wanting to follow him in serving and in giving and making a difference and sacrifice in this world. And so, have a rich relationship with God. That's the story for this week. And honestly, if I stopped right there, we'd be getting out early because the story wasn't very long, even with my intro for Be Rich. But the problem is that we're not stopping there, because I took a part of our journey story to tell about Jesus' life today. But we also have to talk about Be Rich. And unfortunately, sometimes we'll do a Be Rich talk before the sermon, have some music, and then I'll do the sermon, and those two things are long, but they're separated. I mash them together. So now, even though we took a shorter story from the Bible, I got to take a few extra minutes and keep rambling to talk about Be Rich. I apologize. But that brings us to our goals for today. We wanted to move the story of Jesus forward, and we did with that wonderful story we just read. But today I want to talk about this beautiful time of year where our church does its Be Rich campaign. I love it. Be Rich is something we do every year, and we give to others outside of our church who are serving others. Now, we are our charity ourselves, are we not? Isn't our church a charitable organization? Yes. And we could use more. But we don't want to only be about us. We want to be about others. We want to, and we don't want to have to own it all. We want to bless the blessers. We want to support the supporters who will take the work that we can help and say, because here's the thing about every charity and every ministry out there who's doing a good job could use more help, because their vision outpaces their means. They could all use more manpower. They could all use more money. And we can give to somebody else, and they can take that money and they can do something good with it. And they get the credit for it, not us. But are we doing things for the credit, or are we wanting to bless those who are doing good things? It's one of the most selfless things we ever do as a church, is not just think of our stuff, our programs, but others. And so, I love Be Rich. But can I be very honest with you? I was nervous. I'm gonna confess my sins to you so that you can, my lack of faith, so that those of you who would judge me for it can throw stones, but I'm gonna give you marshmallow stones to throw when we get a chance. I was nervous about this year's Be Rich campaign because it's not for us, it's outward facing, which is easy to talk about, but I was nervous because we just did so much in-house fundraising for our own parking lot. We've been trying to rehab this building since we've been in it. The parking lot was one big giant expense. We had a Kickstart campaign to put the down payment down for that parking lot. We had people make I'm part of a 3-year commitment. Many of you are too, to monthly give for 3 years to pay off the parking lot in 3 years. We kind of stressed ourselves. And I've been pastoring for almost 27 years this month, and in this building for a handful of years, and I've never done a capital campaign before in my life until this parking lot. And now on the back of that, I'm like, man, we can't do Be Rich this year. So I'm telling my team, should we just skip it this year? Don't throw stones. That's how I felt. And they're like, Arlen, no. And I needed to hear. I wasn't sure. I was expressing my doubts. And they're like, no, because this isn't about us. It's about others. And again, many of you have expressed your excitement as well. So it bolstered me to say, let's not drop the ball this year because we had a capital campaign. Let's think of others. But I know it's been a big year. But Be Rich is where we come alongside other organizations and we support them in the good work that they're doing. And every year we support 2 or maybe 3 or maybe 4 programs that are helping in the community, and this year is no exception. I want to tell you what the causes are for this campaign and how you can be a part in the rest of my time with you. There's 3 traditional fundraising things we're going to do and serving things we're going to do, and there's one a little off the beaten path but good. I'll start with that other one. It's part of what we call Chicagoland Prison Outreach, which we did support last year in a normal way, in the way we're going to do the others. But this is a great program. They go into the prisons in Indiana and Illinois. They bring the gospel to people in prison. They spread the message. They teach them. They keep going back and studying and growing their faith and their understanding of God. But they also teach them life skills. Because when they get out of prison, the idea is that when they get out of prison, they want to be, right? We all want to be productive members of society. They can get out and have skills to make a living. We don't want to be takers and leeches off of it. We want to be able to contribute. And so they teach them skills to go out and provide for themselves and be able to give back. And they give them skills to do that. And then when they get out, they help them get placement if they get out. And it's a great program. We love everything about this. We're going to support them probably again more officially another time. But what we did that we're going to do again this year specifically is they have an Angel Tree program. You don't know what Angel Tree is. And they do this every year. We're going to do the Angel Tree program for this program ministry. Here's why. Because most of these people they're ministering to in prison have children who are home, who are struggling. When you have a parent in prison, a mom or a dad in prison, you're in poverty. You may be living in a single-parent home, or you may be living in a grandparent's or someone else's house. But you're struggling, plus all the legal expenses their family has faced through all that has happened. And those kids did nothing wrong, but they're struggling. And so as they minister to these prisoners, they find out they're children and they bring them gifts of clothing or shoes, a toy. It's Christmas time, some food for the family, and they bless them through Angel Tree. And starting next week, we're going to have an Angel Tree set up in our lobby. Be ready next Sunday with things that you can grab one for boys this age, girls that age, and we can bless some families, some kids who are in a tough situation this way. That's the Angel Tree. I hope you'll do that. We did a good job last year. Now, that's one thing. Besides that, we have our traditional, what we raise to give to causes in a more traditional sense. And we have 3 of those this year. 2 are repeats. 1 is new. Sometimes we do things over and over again because we like them consistently. Sometimes we try something for 1 year and then move on to something else. Or maybe we come back to them a couple years later. But the first 2 are repeats. One of them is called Mommy's Haven. It's based in Lowell. We love Mommy's Haven. We've been a part of them for years and years now. They help single moms who found themselves in a spot where they're having a baby, the man needs to be out or is gone or abandoned, whatever it may be, and they're choosing to keep that life and keep that child, which all of us would probably celebrate that they're doing that, but the church ought to be excellent at stepping up and helping in those situations, and we try to be. And they do a great job. They have a housing facility where they put moms up. They can actually stay there for a period of time to get on their feet. They help them get IDs if they don't have like driver's licenses or social securities. They help them get in the system so they can make a future for themselves. They help them with college or getting, certain kinds of training and things that will help them have better opportunities. They get them job placements, childcare, all sorts of stuff to get them. So again, they can take care of themselves and their child because everyone wants to be able to do that in life. And it's a wonderful ministry. We love it. I want to plug it for again this year with a gift from our church. Another one we love to support is Hearts in Motion. I'm a big fan of Hearts in Motion. The lady who started it, his name is Karen. She's come to our church twice before, and we'll have her back one day again if she's willing. She is amazing. A few decades ago when she was very young, she went on a missions trip, and she's adopted like 11 kids from all over the place. She's a big heart, but she ended up in Guatemala where she saw real poverty. In nations that are underdeveloped compared to us, the place you can most tell the poverty is where it's the most poor. That makes sense to anybody. I just want to make that clear for us. You go to Caribbean countries and see the resort areas and say, oh, they're rich here, the tourist spots. You got to go where the poverty is at to see how poverty looks in places. And in Guatemala, there is such extreme poverty. And some of us have traveled. Last hour, one of the men who was in the room, Ted, went with our family when we were many years ago and saw real poverty across the world. If you've never seen it, it will shock you. And her heart was broken. She came home. She began to rally up a bunch of people to go back with her, doctors, eye doctors, dentists, eventually all kinds of doctors and different kinds of gifts, builders. They build orphanages. They provide food, education, and they have made a continuous, decades-long impact. And she is still so full of spunk and energy that when Karen is around, I want to just leave my nets and take up and follow her wherever she's going next because she is amazing. And the videos that they bring back and show break my heart every time. They do good work. It's inspired. Hey, you should go to their website. We're going to post some of the links to these places on our church Facebook group and try to share them with you the next couple weeks. But Hearts in Motion is wonderful. And I will say this, they also help locally. There's a thrift store they have in Cherville that helps fund the work they do in Guatemala and in other places in South and Central America. But also, they help furnish houses for people here trying to get a head start, like Mommy's Haven people who need to get in a house and have it furnished. They help supply furnishings for someone's house. It's really an incredible ministry. And so those are two of the causes that we love to come back to, and we're going to do it again this year. There's one more that's new for us, and let me say a word about it. It involves being a blessing to our schools locally, our churches in the Hanover School District, and we want to be a blessing. Many of us are involved in our local schools here in this district. And I've been involved for like over 10 years, going there consistently. Every week I'm in one of the schools, if not two of the schools, plus we extra stuff. I don't want to get into all that. Our church is that way, and you allow us to do that, and you do that because we understand something, and that is this. Whether or not you have kids in our local schools, maybe your kids are grown. Maybe your kids don't have kids yet. Maybe you never will. Maybe you educate your children a different way. That's all good. But regardless of whether it affects us directly or not, we live in a community where that's where a lot of the school families in our community, their kids go. We talk about being Four Cedar Lake. There's no better place to be in the hub of Four Cedar Lake than where the kids from homes, they go to our school. These kids are from homes that sometimes are a lot like your home. Sometimes they're very broken homes. Sometimes they're drug and alcohol addicted homes. The kids are suffering. But no matter what the spectrum of kids are in our community that we claim to be for, our schools are a ground zero place to get connected to the heartbeat of the town our church ministers in. Regardless of whether my kids are all graduated, I could care less, right? But I do, because that's our community and we need to care about this town, unless we're gonna be one of those in-the-walls churches that says, this is my thing. Pray for revival in the big bad world, but don't get anywhere near it. We need to get out there, and we are. And this is the heart and soul of Cedar Lake. And so because of that, we are involved in there for years, and they give back. Most of our schools give back to our food bank here all the time. We had two donations this week from our schools, I believe. They do a lot of good work because we've gotten involved, and we've made a difference. And our church is filled with people who've been affected by that and reached by that, including our early service today. I love it. Well, anyhow, about a year and a half ago, about a year and a half ago, I was asked graciously to be on board of the Hanover School Education Foundation. And it's called HSCF. And it's something that I was invited into. There's a handful of people that do it. It's a lot of school educators, like Mr. Steve Gustus, who's a part of our church now, was in the first service. He's on the board. Some of our other, I won't name names, so some of our local people, besides several school people, so the banks, like one of our bank leaders here, Big B, Vito's up until this recent year, other people in our church even who were on the board until their terms expired have served on HSCF. It's a wonderful way to be involved in a charitable service, and I'm now a part of it as well, thanks to our involvement in the community. And what this foundation does is it raises money for largely two causes. The smaller cause, but still worth mentioning, is teacher grants, because teachers always could use more. First of all, our state is one of the least paid states for paying educators in the whole country. Or it's way down low. No one around us, states around us, are paid as poorly as Indiana. On top of that, our district is really way down the list too. It's a double whammy. But every teacher could use more resources than they're allowed to have, and they can do grants, then money is raised to help them have means to do that. That's the one thing we do. In fact, we just did that 2 weeks ago in my office with a team of people, and we dispersed some cash we had to help some teachers with resources. But the bigger thing we do with HSCF is scholarships for students graduating from high school. Kids who are graduating who want to go on either to college or to the trades. College or the trades, and it takes money to do those things because it costs money. And it could be college, or it could be Ivy Tech for a trade, or it could be book supplies, or it could be like personal clothing supplies for the trade. But whatever it is, they need money to get started in the next thing of their life. And here's the thing, it's a good cause, but we never have enough. That's where we funnel most of our energy. And to be honest, my kids went through the school, and we never got an HSC. We never even applied for one. But I know, and so do you know, how crippling expenses could be as someone gets out of high school and tries to figure out the rest of their life. And so kids can apply for a scholarship, and we take them and say, where's the need? Where's the opportunity? How can we support it? And for years, this group has done this, and for the last year and a half now, and this is my second year being a part of this foundation. And I don't know, again, whether that affects you or not, it doesn't affect me anymore. But don't we want the young people in our community to have our community is better when people have a chance to get a good start in life. And we love the foundation for that reason. So we wanted to put them in our list for this year as another good cause. So those are our three, besides the Angel Tree with Chicago Prison Outreach. Prison Land. It's like a Disney park. Anyhow, so those are our causes. Now, you say, Arlen, how do we reach our goals? How do we reach our goals? Well, what is our goal, Arlen? I've always been hesitant to set a numeric goal for this, because I don't know what we can do, honestly, especially after the parking lot ordeal. This year I'm like, what can we do? Are we all kind of tapped out? But here's the thing. We like to give, it's always nice to give each of the three causes that we do $1,000 would be great each. We've done more in the past few years, but this year, can we? Are we gonna be tight? But you know what? That's not important. The goal we really have is this, 100% participation. That's our goal. Because we don't want a couple people to carry a load and we all just hear about it and applaud them. We all want to be rich together. And so, we have an ask, a basic asking amount we ask people to give that's low enough that everyone can sacrifice and make it happen, and some can do more. And that basic ask that we're going to ask us to do for Be Rich has not changed in years. We've never raised the amount, even though inflation has gone up. Have you noticed that, by the way? Inflation has gone up everywhere, and things don't spread as far as they used to, but we have not raised our ask over the years because we want to make it easy, accessible. And so once again, we are asking everyone if they could give a gift of this amount of $39.95 towards Be Rich, each of us. You say, why $39.95? Why not $40, Arlen? That's just weird. I don't know. I watched a late night infomercial when I was younger, and they said it sounds better, so I just believed them. I don't know. But the reason we asked that amount, and we've not raised it, some people say to me, Arlen, this is 2025. That was fine in 2017, but now we should be asking for $89.95 so it goes as far as $39.95 used to go. And I'm like, I know we should ask for more because of inflation, but here's the problem. I want everyone to participate. And if we get too high, it'll be hard for some of us. This is hard for some of us. For some people, it means no coffee shops for a few weeks, Or a couple of fast food stops are going to be cut out to make it happen. Or someone's going to say, if I need to declutter and sell some stuff on Facebook Marketplace to minimize and have some cash to give to some good cause. For some people, that's a stretch. I love that we have young people, like teen-year-aged people, teens who come up and say, I can use my allowance or some side jobs to raise that and do that myself because it's attainable. And I love that. So we keep the price low to ask you to be involved. But I do know that it doesn't go as far as it used to, and therefore, I want to say for some of us, we're married and both spouses work, and we could each give $39.95 because we have the means to do that. I can do $79.90. And maybe there's some households where they're like, I got 4 in our house, but we could do more. We'll do $39.95 each. That's $159.70, or $80. So I could do that. It doesn't matter. Or maybe someone's like, I can throw a zero behind that number. When I say throw a zero behind that number, I don't mean 39.950, by the way. Don't do that to me. I mean, I can 10x that without blinking because that's not a hardship for me. It might stretch me to do 10 times more than that, but for somebody else to give 40 is as hard for them as for me to give 400, but I would do more because I believe that God has blessed me to be able to do more, and so sacrifice looks bigger for me than somebody else, and I'm glad to do what God has blessed me with. But whether or not it's a bigger or smaller amount, we're asking everybody to consider jumping on and doing something. This is what we used to call an all skate. Does anyone use the term all skate anymore for anything? Is that outdated? Am I old? Who does? Not all state, all skate. Goodness gracious, you people. Well, he's a guy, so anyhow. No, I'm saying we want everyone to participate. That's the goal, right? 100%. So can you jump in and say, Arlen, I can do something. I can help out on my level, whatever that looks like. How and when? Okay, how? On your way out, there is a placard. There's a big display, if you didn't see it when you came in, that it displays 2 things. On the one side is our forward campaign for our parking lot. We still need help there. And then the other side is the Be Rich campaign that talks about these causes. And underneath both sides are envelopes you can give to them. Whatever comes in those envelopes goes out to Be Rich, to these causes, not to, we just pass it on, 100%. There's no handling fees here, obviously. I'm stretched this year, but I'm giving to it. I hope you will, because this is a good cause. That's how you can do it. You can take a picture of the QR code or go to our website another way and do it digitally. Digital's wonderful. Try it. You can give online. You say when? As soon as possible. We always want to raise the money in November so that we can give it to them right after Thanksgiving when we know how much we accumulated, so that by early December they have it and they can disperse it before the Christmas holidays, so that by Christmas we can celebrate where our money went and what we accomplished. And so we want to do it soon. So maybe if you know what you want to do today, do it today. If you need a couple days to pray about it, take a couple days to pray. But let's, in the next week or so, get this done as a church. And I'm asking you to help us with our Be Rich drive this year. Now, I've said over and over again today as I wrap up, I've said over and over again, I've been nervous because this is not for us, but I feel bad to ask for us to do more for others when we just raised a bunch of money for our parking lot. And that's why I waffled. But I'm going to tell you a little secret that's been happening to me the last week. I've been getting excited. I'm weird. I've been getting this really goofy excitement in my head that said, what if this year, when we've tapped ourselves out the most, we step up and take care of Be Rich? Maybe we don't get the most money we've ever gotten in a Be Rich campaign because we can't do as much this year. But what if in a year that we've done so much other stuff, we still step up and bless others because we make it happen? This might be the most important year we've ever done Be Rich, and it might be the biggest celebration we ever have if we can make it work of all years this year. And I'm kind of getting excited. I'm going to do my part. Hope you'll do your part. No one's going to police that, or we have no Gestapo outside to deal with you if you don't. We don't care. We say all the time, you're more important than what you do. We're just glad you're here. No, there's no constraint. There's no expectation. There's no list of who, we will take the ones who give, but we're not keeping track of anybody. This is simply us saying, will you join us in being rich? Because, as Paul said to Timothy about the church in Ephesus, so I say to you today, the words that Paul gave him. Teach those who are rich to be rich. And we are rich. We just need to look far enough around to see that. By the way, I didn't mention serving. Every one of those programs I just mentioned could use people to serve. Mommy's Haven needs people to run errands for them and do things for them. They could use help. Hearts in Motion, you could volunteer at the thrift store or the secondhand store, and that saves them money that can go to the cause. Or you could go on a mission trip yourself to Guatemala or some other place like that and do some good. HSDF, the school foundation, their biggest event is the Penguin Plop in early March. If you've never been a part of that, we'll announce more about that in January. It's a blast. It's freezing, but it's a blast. You can do that and serve there. There's lots of ways you can serve. But we also want to give them a nice gift from our church in the next couple of weeks. So teach those who are rich to be rich. Whether or not you're the wealthiest person you know, and I'm sure you're not, let's do something that people who might have a whole lot more money than you and I have never do. Let's be rich in serving, and let's be rich in giving. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Draw us as a church to be generous. I love this campaign because it's not for us. I love that. It's for others. It's a giving opportunity. And help me to never forget that you've given everything for me. You laid it all down. You served, you sacrificed, you gave, and you asked me to not just to believe on you, and I want to believe, but you asked me to follow you. And I hope I'm following you. Help us all to follow you today in whatever that looks like for us, including this area, but not exclusive to this area. Guide us to a relationship that's rich with you. In Jesus' name we pray.